Let's keep this introduction brief. This video lists the 10 largest cruise ships and passenger vessels that have sunk. At number 1, RMS Titanic. The RMS Titanic must be the most well-known cruise ship accident. The Olympic-class ocean liner was built in Northern Ireland and was owned by White Star Line. It was built by Thomas Andrews and was the biggest passenger ship of its time. It could hold more than 3,000 people. It was called unsinkable because it had 16 watertight compartments that could be closed in case of an accident. On its first trip from Southampton to New York, the ship sunk. In April 1912, it hit a huge iceberg near Newfoundland, Canada. 3 hours later, 1,500 of the 2,208 people on board were killed. Before help could get there, everyone died from hypothermia because the water in the North Atlantic was too cold. Several lives could have been saved if there had been more lifeboats. Number 2, Costa Concordia. The Costa Concordia sank because the captain and one of the officers made a small mistake. It was a grand passenger ship with 17 decks, a 3-story theater, swimming pools, gyms, bars, and much more. The ship had room for more than 4,000 people. But the ship hit an underwater rock on January 13, 2012, when it was sailing close to the shore. The captain turned off the guidance alarm on the computer because he thought he could find his way around the water on his own. The ship flipped over and sank, and even though relief workers worked for 6 hours, 34 people died. Even though the Coast Guard officers tried to stop him, it is shocking that the captain left the ship with 300 people on board. In 2017, he was found guilty of manslaughter and was given a 16-year jail term. At number 3, MS Estonia. In the Baltic Sea, bad weather hit the cruise boat MS Estonia, which caused it to sink. Meyer Werft in Papenburg, Germany, built the ship in 1980. Before 1993, it had many names like Viking Sally and Wasa King. In September 1994, it sank on its way from Tallinn to Stockholm. Reports say that it sank because the bow door locks wouldn't open during the storm when winds were blowing at 35 to 45 miles per hour. So the ship tipped to the opposite side and later sank because the car deck was flooded too much. The ship went down in an hour, taking 852 people with it. Only 137 people made it out alive and were saved. At number 4, the RMS Lusitania. In 1915, when the Germans attacked the cruise ship RMS Lusitania, it was one of the main reasons why the US joined the First World War. It was hit as a Navy ship because it also had weapons for Britain on board. The military submarine U-20 struck the ship while it was on its way from New York to Liverpool. The ship set sail in 1906. It was built by John Brown and Corporation and was run by Cunard Company. At that time, the huge steamship was the biggest and most luxurious ship. It could easily hold 2,160 people and more than 800 crew members. When it went down, 1,201 people, mostly Americans, died. Number 5, the SS Andrea Doria. The SS Andrea Doria ran into another passenger ship because the radar was misread. So people remember it as the world's biggest crash caused by radar. The accident could not have been stopped because thick fog made it impossible to see, and in July 1956, the accident happened off the coast of Nantucket, Massachusetts, as the liner was heading to New York. When it was hit under the starboard bridge, it took 11 hours for the waves to cover it, which gave other ships time to react to its SOS call. More than 50 people died, most from the impact, and more than 1,650 people were saved. It cost a whopping $30 million to build. The ship was 212 meters long and had 10 decks and strong steam engines that let it go as fast as 23 knots. At number 6, the SS Eastland. The tourist ship killed 844 people on July 24, 1915, when it was stopped in a port on the Chicago River. Most of the people on board were stuck inside when the ship rolled onto its starboard side and sank. It is one of the worst shipwrecks that has ever happened on the Great Lakes. Accident happened as 2,500 people were getting on the ship to go on a trip through Michigan. There could have been problems with the way the ship was built. It was overloaded, or the cargo tanks weren't big enough. Later, it was given to the US Navy and made changes to it. It was turned into the USS Wilmette, a ship that was used to train people. At the end of the Second World War, it was thrown away. The 275-meter-long cruise ship had 11 lifeboats and 37 life rafts on board. Number 7. The RMS Empress of Ireland. Because it was hard to see in the St. Lawrence River, the 6,000-ton Storstad, a Norwegian ship, hit the 1,477-passenger ocean liner Empress of Ireland. In May 1914, more than 1,000 people died in the second worst cruise tragedy of the time after the Titanic. The cruise ship went from Liverpool to Quebec by way of the North Atlantic. Even though it had 42 lifeboats, only 4 people could be put into the water because the ship was listing to the starboard side. This caused fear and chaos on board. The problem was made worse by the harsh cold and the fact that the ship couldn't lose its waterway doors and portholes. In 1906, the 168-meter-long, 20-meter-wide cruise ship set sail, and it was made by Francis Elgar and owned by the Canadian Pacific Steamship Business. At number 8, the SS Admiral Nakhimov. The leaders of both ships were careless, which led to the crash between the cruise ship SS Admiral Nakhimov and a bulk carrier ship. The bulk ship's captain didn't pay attention to the warning sign sent by the cruise ship. In 1986, the cruise ship went down in Sams Bay near the port of Novorossiysk. It was carrying 1,234 people, but 423 of them died because of the crash and what happened afterwards. The cruise ship, which was first called the SS Berlin II, went between the Crimea and the Caucasus. At number 9, the SS Morro Castle. In September 1934, the cruise ship SS Morro Castle caught fire and sank, killing more than 135 people on board. The ship went from Havana to New York with 318 guests and 239 crew members. The accident happened when the fire in the library spread to the decks and rooms and burned up the superstructure. The fire could not be put out because of bad weather, incompetent staff, and the way the ship was built. Only 12 of the many lifeboats that were on board could be used. The ship was left behind in the afternoon, and the people who were still alive were taken to the coast of New Jersey. The exact cause of fire is still unknown, but a hot funnel and faulty wiring are thought to be to blame. At number 10, the St. Philibert. In June 1931, a small cruise ship traveling from the Loire River near the French coast ran into trouble. The 500 people on the ship were mostly workers and their children. It carried 80% more than it could have. Even more dangerous was the fact that it ran into rough seas and weather, which had never happened before in the summer. The captain and the rest of the team were scared because there was nothing they could do. Only 8 people out of the 500 on board escaped the terrible accident. The storm was so bad that people had to take cover near machinery casings. This tilted the ship to its starboard side, and when a huge wave hit it, it flipped over. The ship wasn't ready for bad weather, and neither the captain nor the crew had much experience. And this is it for today. Thank you guys for viewing in. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.